Hey there YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur here. We're back to look at more of Roger from Mud Fossil U's nonsense. When last we left Roger, he was telling us that the ancient texts were right about the mud flood that they don't mention, because he found a rock that kinda looks like a goose head. But then he identified parts of goose anatomy in the wrong place, so, not a great argument. Let's see what else he has for us.
You see that? That's the feldspar.
In case you don't remember or weren't here last time, one of his things is just saying that things are feldspar without actually bothering to show any reason to think that, except that he thinks that even though it's chemically impossible, membranes, which he thinks are all phospholipid bilayers, even though that's wrong, decay into aluminum silicates, and he thinks that all rocks are actually organs and whatnot. Don't try too hard to understand it. It's like trying to have a conversation with a shoggoth.
That's the inside was a body part of whatever it was. And I can't find anything that wasn't alive at one time. Every single rock.
I mean, we can just watch new igneous rocks form from lava, and they have the same physical and chemical characteristics as his igneous rocks do. So I have no idea why he thinks he needs to explain other igneous rocks by means of fossilization of giants under a mud flood. But also, given that he wants to identify everything as a formerly living thing, and that Roger has apparently never heard the phrase confirmation bias, or the word pareidolia, in his life, I don't think it's either surprising or compelling that every rock he sees he thinks is some kind of fossil.
If you know what to look for and how to look at it, you could find a sign of life virtually in every single rock.
In other words, if you simply decide that all rocks are fossils and you ignore all contrary evidence, you can find inconsequential details of rocks that you can pretend are indications that they were once body parts. It's kind of like when creationists say that as long as you assume their version of a biblical worldview, you can suddenly see all the evidence that the Earth is 750,000 times younger than it really is.
Some of them are just bits and pieces like that right there.
Somewhat ironically, I think the light flecks in that particular rock may in fact be feldspar.
You say, well, that's not a piece of a thing. Yes, it is.
I mean, it's definitely a piece of a thing, and that thing looks like extrusive igneous rock, but I'm not going to bet on that. What I will bet on, though, is that there is absolutely no indication that rock even could be biogenic.
That was, I believe, was a lung at one time, something very similar to this one.
Why is everything but his goose head a lung? I mean, none of the rocks actually have the characteristic anatomy of the things he said they are, but why can't one be a kidney or a bit of liver? Perhaps one may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato.
And it filled up with silicates inside here.
But Roger thinks that the membranes turn into silicates, so did this lung fill up with some kind of membranous mass before turning to stone? I'm so confused. This is less internally consistent than Carl Baugh's nonsense, and that's saying something given that he thinks that the Earth used to have a solid firmament made of clear, glowing, metallic hydrogen-water plasma.
And where all these little cavities are, this one didn't.
Those cavities are actually outgassing marks from the cooling of the lava that these rocks started as, but apparently Roger thinks they're holes in the pleural sac around the lung. I'm not sure why he thinks that, or what would have caused that, or why he thinks that there are just a bunch of random lungs lying about disassociated from not just skeletons, but even without bronchi, which makes them pretty useless as lungs even in life, since a bronchus is how the air gets into the lung in the first place.
They're all different. They all react differently because of different areas and different conditions.
That at least makes sense. One would expect fossilized organs to look different if they fossilize under different conditions. It would be wonderful if we got a taphonomic analysis from Roger, rather than just a bunch of nuh-uh and looks like.
Now, most of these I just picked up right here on my property, gotta be honest with you. I just picked them up. I didn't go digging around for them.
How convenient that Roger lives smack in the middle of the great North American lung pile.
Because they're just everywhere.
I wonder if Roger ever stops to wonder what could possibly have caused him to be living in a place full of random lungs with no associated body. That on its own should raise some suspicions that he's not actually looking at what he thinks he is.
So anyway, and I have never found anybody that couldn't find him within 15 minutes. You can find something that they could identify as being an actual body part.
Well, yeah, when you decide at the outset that any rock you find is a body part, and you rely on pareidolia to determine which body part, it's easy. Look, here's a heart, here's a finger, here's a liver, here's a lung.
I do the 15-minute challenge. Never had anybody fail yet that I know of.
Maybe he should do a challenge where it's possible to fail, like challenging people to find a petrified lung in his yard that actually gets that DNA testing and then showing the results. And if it's human DNA from the interior of the rock, not just some contamination from the outside, then Roger wins. If not, I win. And Roger owes me a nice non-petrified steak.
All right, so here we are. What is composting?
Well, right on screen it says that it's the process of recycling organic materials into an amendment that can be used to enrich soil and plants. So basically it's making fertilizer out of organic waste.
It's the process of recycling organic material into an amendment that can be used to enrich soil and plants and make things grow very green.
Yes.
That's composting. Well, what else does it do? It can cause combustion. Spontaneous combustion in composting.
Yes, composting gives off both heat and very flammable decay gases. That combination can be dangerous.
And the cause is because it's too much heat is building up from the chemistry that's breaking the bonds in there, and it can't release because it's under too much pressure in a pile.
That's true.
The heat, well, here it is right here. Spontaneous combustion occurs because temperatures rise past a critical set point, which means then it bursts into flame, due to the rate of heat loss in a pile being less than the rate of heat buildup. So you're building up heat quicker than it can dissipate, and eventually it just explodes.
Is he going to say that volcanoes are big compost piles? Is that what's going on?
That's spontaneous combustion.
Yep, and let's keep in mind that combustion means fire. If there were no oxygen, these gases couldn't combust no matter how hot they were.
So anyway, Mount Spur is very eruptive, and it's going off I forget what it was.
Oh my god, he's going to say the volcanic eruptions are spontaneous combustion of decay gases.
Now, what you want to pay attention to is they erupt like this. This is Mount Spur, and it erupts like that and throws all kinds of volcanic ash and so forth, which is nothing more than this compost, as far as I'm concerned, which makes things grow extremely green.
Volcanic ash is composed mostly of bits of rock and glass. Virtually none of it contains carbon, and it's mostly things like feldspar, halides, and other silicates. While volcanic ash can indeed be good for plant growth, it's not at all chemically similar to organic compost. I wonder if Roger knows that we live on Earth, not Octurne.
And the rest just flowed down, as I will show you.
Roger telling me he'll show me something fills me with dread. On the bright side, I think responding to him has cured any form of existential crisis I could have, since at least the sweet release of death will free me from the suffering of trying to understand how Roger can come to any of his conclusions.
All right, so up here is Mount Spur, and all this is running down. You see how green it is down here? How green this whole area is down here?
Yep, but again, more than one kind of thing can promote plant growth.
And of course it would have blown up like that, and then what the runoff is here. Now I'm going to show you what that looks like from Google Earth. I know this sounds absolutely insane, but it's true. This is Mount Spur that erupts. I mean violently.
So far, that's the least insane thing I've heard Roger say. It's a volcano, of course it erupts. And most volcanoes tend to do so violently. Most are generally not very much like the Hawaiian volcanoes that are known to have fairly sedate, non-explosive eruptions.
And it spewed out all this stuff. It ran down in here and ran down in here, and it's collected down here. It's kind of an interesting looking collection.
I guess so. It looks like it did what I'd expect and follow the contour of the local geography, thereby flowing downhill. Is that interesting?
Of what's coming out of there. Now, then you have this over here. All right, you see this one, and you have this one. Two different areas, but they're both putting something out.
Yes, many volcanoes have more than one vent.
So let's think about that.
Okay, I'm thinking about it. Not sure what in particular about a normal volcano I'm supposed to find interesting in the sense that it might give indication that this is all the remains of cell membranes.
And as I say, there is nothing that wasn't alive. And I'm going to tell you right now, that was alive. And this is a digestive system, this whole thing up in here.
That's the Aleutian Range of volcanoes. They are basically the things that form the Alaskan Peninsula and include many active volcanoes, with active eruptions being fairly common. They are also a part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is a formation of volcanoes that more or less surrounds the Pacific Ocean. These volcanoes exist because of the subduction of the Pacific Plate under various continental plates, such as the Eurasian Plate, the North American Plate, and the Australian Plate. It's a bit more complex with South America, since the Nazca Plate is between South America and the Pacific Plate, But that's more complex than we need to get into for our purposes. The granite continental crust is more buoyant on the mantle than the denser basalt of the Pacific plate, and so when the Pacific plate and the continental plate meet, coming towards each other, the Pacific plate will go under the continental crust down into the mantle. As this happens, various chemicals, especially silica-rich ones, will melt with the increasing temperature of the plate they were associated with. This causes them to form low-density, high-temperature magma pools between the sinking basalt and the continental granite. Over time, this causes the continental crust to bulge up like a blister. A blister caused not by immune fluids, but by liquid hot magma. When the pressure from this magma becomes too high for the overburdening rock to contain, the magma will burst forth, often explosively, and in many cases turning into various kinds of volcanic debris, such as ash, pyroclastic flows, or streams of lava. The volcanoes at the Pacific Rim do not form some single digestive tract, and there is no reason to think that the magma chambers in the Aleutian Range are all interconnected. The only reason I can see why Roger thinks that they are a digestive system is that 1, they spew things out, which digestive systems are known to do, and 2, the erosion features of this area of active uplift look organic, and that's because in many ways the erosion here is similar to the reduction diffusion patterns you see in biology. You might not know it, but you actually see the results of these interactions all over the place. The folds in brain coral, the stripes of a zebra, the spots on leopards, etc. all ultimately come from reaction-diffusion reactions. In these reactions, there are 2 chemicals spreading through a medium. Each inhibits the other, and each is produced in certain areas. This creates complex geometric patterns which are highly contingent. Now, this is obviously not how volcanic chains work. They're not the interaction of a couple chemicals, but they do have some similarities. Hotspots under the ground from the magma welling up form the center of the uplifts of the mountains, and the erosion acts as an inhibitor. And erosion can be stronger in some places than others. As a result, erosion and uplift act like the antagonistic substances, and the result is that one sees patterns that are vaguely similar to those found in the biological world. This is also why in some cases the paths of rivers and burn marks that can be made from electricity are similar. Both electricity and water follow the path of least resistance from an area of high potential to an area of low potential, and so there are similarities in the way that the paths of such flow will branch and merge. Also, the electrical power needed to decoratively burn things like wood with electricity is also enough to almost immediately be fatal to a human, and it is also a severe fire hazard. Please do not attempt to do things like that, and if you must, please get heavy protective clothing, and do so only with strict controls, and an easy way to kill the power. But mostly, just don't do it.
I've dug down deep into this, and this is all biological.
Let's remember, the only reasons he says that is because he understands neither biology nor chemistry, and because it kinda looks like it to him.
When you get down in there and close and look at it, it's all like little rivulets and so forth.
Oh, it's all rivulets, as in tiny rivers? Gee, I wonder how a bunch of mountains, famously the sources of rivers, might have gotten small rivers on them when you zoom in on the peaks. I guess we can add the water cycle and the rock cycle to things Roger has shown he just does not understand.
You see that's not natural. They don't make that kind of a pattern like that just everywhere.
An erosion pattern? I mean, we find it on Mars too, and in erosion experiments, and in simulations of erosion. In fact, I'd argue that yes, we do find that everywhere.
And it's everywhere. And you see how green it is down here? That's when you have red blood, you get green things growing. Look at this.
Of course, explaining why farmers the world over fertilize their fields with blood. Oh, wait, my producer is actually informing me that no, that's not how it works, and in fact, blood has no significant history actually being used to fertilize soil, and the closest we can find is cultures who thought that sacrificing animals, sometimes including humans, could induce fertility gods to grant a better harvest or rain gods to bring rain.
It's too pattern, too much pattern here.
Does Roger expect that erosion is just going to cease operating at some point in these mountains?
It's everywhere. It's not just here and there. It's just everywhere.
Yep, that's how erosion do.
So what exactly part of the digestive system is this? I don't know.
Of course he doesn't, because it doesn't look anything like a digestive system. It's just like when he couldn't identify any actual part of the anatomy of a lung when he was holding up his bits of rocks that he said were lungs.
Whenever you see these different colored lakes, you see these like that color here, and then this color here, and this is a little different. And then there'll be a real dark blue one you see up here. They'll always have all these different colors.
My first guess would be that they have different concentrations and populations of algae or different mineral content. I wonder what Roger's first thought will be on this phenomenon.
Because there's some kind of enzyme issue going on here. You see, there's one over here.
I mean, different kinds of algae do have different biochemistry, so I guess that's possible.
And here's Mount Spur right here. And all this is coming down and eroded somewhere. I don't know. And this, Mount Spur really literally is the rectum.
Well, it's a volcano, so no, but what does this have to do with the colors of the lakes?
And out of that Mount Spur comes all this stuff, and it comes down here, and it comes down here. All right, and it comes, see it, wrapping right around here.
Lava, as a liquid, likes to flow downhill along the path of least resistance.
It comes into here. And I think it might be leaking fairly regularly and not always just one big gigantic explosion.
While Mount Spur is indeed still geologically active with earthquakes being noticed there in the past 20 years, the only historical eruptions were in 1953 and 1922. The area is monitored seismically both locally and by default globally, since there are seismic stations around the world and any eruption would be noticed by all of them and could be tracked back to its source. If the mountain were geologically active at some low level constantly spewing debris, this would be impossible to miss or cover up. Tianek is a settlement less than 40 miles or about 64 kilometers from Mount Spur. It's a native village and features a native tribal center and St. Nicholas Orthodox Church. I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that if a volcano 40 miles from there were constantly erupting, the people there might notice.
Now you see this cut across here, that's Google Earth, that's nothing I'm doing. If you get far enough away, the cut goes away.
Roger is right about that, and it's honestly shocking he got anything right, even something so simple.
But don't worry about the cut. Just follow the poop. And that is literally poop.
So first it's membranes and lungs, and now it's lava? How does this work?
It's coming down here, and it's coming down, and it's coming down. Look at the color even.
Brown is by far the most common color out there apart from plants which are green. It being brown and gray is in no way evidence that lava is poop. Plus, these are things that can be checked chemically. And the thing is, we know what the lava at Mount Spur is. It's andesite. It's less than 20% quartz and about 10% feldspar, and the rest of it is a bunch of various non-feldspathic silicates. Poop, on the other hand, is almost all water, and the rest of it is almost all carbon. None of it is generally quartz or feldspar, with the exception of quartz crystals from grass, so this isn't poop, it's a lava flow.
You see, it looks like, to me, it's like bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, and each one of those is like a poop.
Once again, Roger comes in with the looks like, as if that's evidence. Also, at one point, wasn't this supposed to be a compost pile, not a digestive tract? Those aren't the same thing,
Maybe.
Definitely not.
Well, I don't know.
I do, and it's not poo.
And it comes all the way down to here. And everything grows extremely green when you have poop.
Does Roger have a prediction for how green this area should be in the absence of volcano poo? He hasn't stated one in this video. It sure would be an interesting way to test his idea. But of course, we don't need to test it. This lava has already been tested. It's andesite.
You see it all green? Now, again, this is Google Earth.
Yep, Google Earth was stitching together winter and summer versions of the same area, probably because they didn't have summer pics of the area at the right resolution.
Now, this is also part of the digestive system. I know, it's crazy.
Yes, it is indeed crazy.
But this is an avian creature, and this is what they call a cloaca. So this side here is the solid sort of poop, and this side here is the watery poop. And these two spots right here, you see this one right here? That's the pincher that pinches it off so that it doesn't leak.
But the watery side is literally just water. It's Beluga Lake and the streams that feed it. We know where the water comes from. It's meltwater from the snow on the mountains. And the people of Beluga, a town a bit north of Tianek, have that water flow right past them. It's not bird poop, it's water. The pinchers are just hills with trees on top. And one of them is right next to another lake, Frustration Lake, which is a lake all about watching Roger videos.
It's like, bladder control.
Birds don't really have a bladder in the mammalian sense, because the waste mammals excrete as mostly water-soluble urea is in birds and other reptiles excreted as uric acid, which is not highly soluble in water. This waste is passed from the bird's liver to the kidneys, which then excrete the uric acid, which is then sent to the digestive tract and excreted as part of a package with feces. That's why birds don't really urinate like a mammal. If you've ever kept a bird, you'll notice that they don't just let loose a stream of urine, although the uric acid portion of their droppings can be fairly high in water.
And this stuff coming down. And then, you see the colors here?
Yes, I do see the colors of Strandline Lake, which is what that turquoise bit is.
You see what's coming out of here?
Andesite and water. I do see it. Does Roger?
Right into here. I don't know what all that's about.
It's andesite. This is really, really easy to check on. Andesite is an extrusive rock with a chemical composition between that of basalt and rhyolite. It's the extrusive version of dolomite, which is the intrusive igneous rock formed from the same magma that produces andesite.
There's some kind of chemistry going on here, major chemistry between this, and I know, this could be the oviduct or whatever, I don't know.
Well, there is indeed lots of chemistry going on here, like with the silicates and whatnot, but birds don't have an oviduct that leads to an opening other than the cloaca. So, what is this? A cloaca or an oviduct, and the cloaca is missing, I guess? Roger is right. He doesn't know, because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
What's going on over this side here?
Looks like more andesite flows.
I don't know, but I can tell you what, I believe, I'm very, very sure, these two are the control that allows the bladder to be released and so forth.
It's amazing how he'll just make up anything he wants and then just decide that that's reality. Maybe Roger thinks he's a reality bender, and what we should do is set up a bunch of nonsense outside his place, but tell them that it's all a bunch of scranted reality anchors and now he can't alter reality anymore, so then he can calm down. Roger has to be adjacent to breaching the veil with these videos, right? Maybe the GOC can deal with him.
Which would be up in this area somewhere.
I guess one of the other mountains is a bladder. I mean, it doesn't really sit well with his other claims about this, but sure, why not? It's not like any of this makes any sense, since we know that what's coming out of those volcanoes is not poop or pee.
And then it dumps into Cook Inlet, which is right here.
So is Cook Inlet a giant kaiju toilet? Is that what we're going for?
Now, there's other places that are dumping fluids in here, too. I don't know what the hell that's... You're going to have runoff from everywhere.
You do get runoff everywhere when it snows in the winter, as it's known to do in Alaska, and then the snow melts in the summer, which it also does. But you know what the runoff off of a mountain from snowmelt is? Why, it's water! After this, Roger repeats himself a fair bit, so I'm cutting a lot of that out.
All right, I guess I'm going to leave it with this. Mount Spur is a serious volcano, and it's right up here.
That's true.
Now, I'm saying this is Scorpzilla.
Earlier it was a bird, but sure, why not?
This is his head.
Scorpions don't really have a head, they have a cephalothorax or prosoma, an abdomen or opisthosoma, and a tail or telson. Now, tagmosis in scorpions is fairly cryptic, so unlike in many other arachnids like spiders, it's not easy to see where each tagma starts or ends, except at the ends of the animal as a whole. Still though, their anatomy follows the basic arachnid plan of those tagmata.
It runs all the way up. This is his shoulders.
Scorpions don't really have shoulders in the traditional sense. They have coxae that connect the legs to the cephalothorax, which sit on the ventral side of the animal. I think he actually means stinger. It doesn't really make sense either way, but let's see what he really means.
Runs all the way out, and that's his scorpion pincher. I'll show you in a second. His body runs all the way down here, and it looks to me like it follows this path right here.
The path of the uplifted crust as a result of the subduction of the Pacific plate under the North American plate. Wow. How convenient that the body of Scorpzilla got laid down exactly where geologists happen to know that the crust is being pushed up by relatively low-density lava. It's like some kind of miraculous coincidence.
Now, physics girl was up here not long ago in a cave. She said it smelled like dog poop.
Except that it was not a cave. It was a tunnel dug into permafrost, and it smelled bad because the tunnel is in soil that's frozen, but still full of dead things. Organic dead things. Not a bunch of andesite.
And it would, because she was in the guts of the beast.
She wasn't even in any of those volcanoes. Like, the video is linked in the description. Feel free to check it out, and maybe wish her well, because she's been down with long COVID for nearly a year at the time of recording, and probably more than that by the time this video is public.
And right there was Mount Spur, is right up in here. Here it is right here. This is where it drains off of, right there.
So, is Mount Spur a part of the scorpion tail, or is it still the bird like we were told earlier? Who knows anymore?
Now, this looks like it... I don't know what the biology is. It's leaking this way.
Yeah, that's because he's looking at geology, not biology.
Does not appear, but could be. But I can tell you what, this here, I'm almost 100% certain.
I like how Roger has basically invented a new logical fallacy. Instead of argument from incredulity, he's going with argument from credulity.
That is a pincher.
Well, a pincher is made of a coxa, a trochanter, a femur, a patella, a tibia, and a tarsus. I'll assume that the bit that's coming down on the stream is the tarsus, and the bit that it attaches to is the tibia. So, where are the patella, the femur, and at least the trochanter? They're nowhere, because there is no obvious jointing or segmentation, which is what scorpion pinchers have. So it's not a scorpion pincher. It just kind of looks like one if you don't actually know what a scorpion pincher looks like. Also, remember when Roger said that the head was down by California? This is the Alaskan Peninsula, and the archipelago that is its continuation. That's the wrong side of the body to be a pincher. Does Roger mean that this is a stinger? Because that also has problems, but let's see if we can't figure it out.
And here's the tail coming all the way out. Now, why do I say it's a pincher?
Because he doesn't know the difference between a pincher and a stinger.
Because you can't pinch, you can't inject anybody.
Okay, so yes, he thinks this is the stinger, not a pincher. But scorpion stingers aren't opposed by some other part of the scorpion, like the top arch of the so-called stinger that we have on screen.
This injected right here. And this is what dribbled out of it. Look at this. This is the stuff that dribbled out.
Or maybe it's just more volcanic eruptions and tectonic uplift.
When it died, I'm almost certain. Now, here's the tail. This has like these little nicks in here, so it should be a little bit flexible at the end.
Except that the stinger of a scorpion comes from the end, not from several segments down. So no, this doesn't line up at all with scorpion anatomy. Never mind that no animals could be that big, because not only could it not support its own weight, it would take hours just to send nerve impulses around a body that big.
Now, this is on a pin. You see this pin right here?
I see that island. In fact, it's Semisopochonoi Island, or Unyak Island as it's also called. And it's the uninhabited peak of a mostly underwater volcano.
Alright, so what does that mean?
That the volcano there grew enough to peak above the waves.
It swivels this way. Now, it would retract back this way and be sticking out. And where would it sit? Right into this pocket.
Not only is that not a pocket, it is in fact Adak and Kanaga Islands. Kanaga Island is uninhabited, but Adak is home to the town of Adak, which has a bar, a post office, and even an airport, since how else would you go to or from there? But also, on top of all that, the scorpion pinchers are fixed to the segment from which they grow. They do not have the ability to move independently or swivel. They don't have a pin they rotate around, and they don't have pockets that they can fit into. This isn't how scorpions work. Maybe Roger can do some creature design for a sci-fi movie or something, but he is clearly bad at knowing the basic anatomy of more or less any animal.
That's the only reason this pocket is here.
Yeah, I'm sure magma has nothing to do with it. Also, this is volcanic formation, and isn't that supposed to be all the digestive system? So why isn't this more cloacas and whatnot? Why is it a stinger this time? In fact, Kanaga Island is home to Mount Kanaga, a volcano that erupted in 1995. So, is that also the end of a digestive tract?
Is to accept this as it rotates backwards. And then you're going to have the pincher sticking out this way. And the two of them together can catch something.
I guess I might as well talk about scorpion prey acquisition. The pinchers, which are in fact modified mouthparts called pedipalps, are generally used for initial prey capture. After this, the stinger, which arches over the back, is used to inject the prey with paralytic venom. Then, the scorpion will use its chelicerae to inject digestive enzymes into the prey and slurp up the now partially digested juices of its hapless victim. The pinchers and stingers are different parts of the body made from different kinds of structures that are at opposite ends of the body. They are not interchangeable, and they have separate but related functions in prey capture.
Alright, that's my take on Scorpzilla.
And what a take it was.
And Crowley Lake is right down in this area somewhere, and I think it's got something to do with his beards. They all seem to have beards.
Did he say beards? As in facial hair? I feel like I don't need to tell you this, dear audience, but scorpions don't have beards.
And Crowley Lake, you should see the size of the pillars in there, and they're just like hairs, I'm sure.
Crowley Lake is in California. It's actually a reservoir, and it contains rock columns on the eastern shore, which are very strange. But hey, let's just read the Wikipedia, because frankly, I'm a bit tired, and it says it better than I will. Quote, "The pillars were simply regarded as oddities until 2015, when geologists from UC Berkeley realized that they were the result of frigid water from melting snow seeping down into a volcanic ash. the result of a catastrophic eruption more than 760,000 years prior, creating tiny holes in the hot ash, the byproduct being boiling water and steam, which then rose up, creating convection cells, which later filled with minerals more resistant to erosion than the surrounding volcanic ash. Samples of the resulting evenly spaced convection cells similar to heat pipes were analyzed using X-rays and electron microscopes, with UC Berkeley researchers finding that minute crevices in these convection pipes were bonded in place by minerals that were able to resist the erosion of the lake's waves. Researchers have counted nearly 5,000 of these pillars, which appear in groups and vary widely in shape, size, and color over an area of 4,000 acres, 1,600 hectares, with some of the columns standing as erect as towering pylons and sporting ringed apertures approximately a foot apart. Others are warped or leaning at various angles, and others are half submerged and some say resemble the petrified remains of dinosaur vertebrae.
Alright, like I said, they all have beards. Now these are Crowley Lake stone columns. They're right under here, which is where you would expect it to be. That's where they have their beards. They're right on the edge of their snouts.
Except that scorpions have neither snouts nor beards, so... Also, of course the columns at Crowley Lake aren't hairs.
You see this? I believe these are his beard. This is Crowley Lake. It's right where the beard's supposed to be. This is black and red, which is the blood colors, and these are hairs.
Hair doesn't contain blood.
All right, and here's what they look like standing inside looking at them, you see? And if you look at a hair, that's how they're shaped, just exactly like that.
No, those pillars have near horizontal layering, whereas hair has scales on it, which is not evident in these pillars. So they only look like hair if you're not familiar with what hair looks like, which seems to be a theme today.
A little smaller for the ones we have, but you see it, and it's eroding away as it comes in, and they're just all falling apart. And this is the kind of clay. This is like kaolin clay, which is the softest clay that is like in your face. It's a facial type of clay.
I'm really trying, but I can't figure out why the hardness of the surrounding sediment is important to any point Roger is trying to make.
So anyway, you come up and look around, but I call him Scorpzilla, and again, his Crowley Lake beard is right at where it's supposed to be.
What a crazy coincidence that when Roger makes random shit up, the shit that he made up is the shit he made up. Who could have ever predicted this?
Now, I know most people have seen Quetzalcoatl,
I sure haven't.
which is right over here.
Still not seeing it.
There's his head and his body snaking all the way up the East Coast, and he's the feathered serpent.
If we're playing pareidolia games, then what I see is a duck, not a feathered serpent. I guess they both have feathers, though. That's something.
And here's the feathers.
Of course, in reality, that's the Appalachians, some of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. They were pushed up when Pangaea came together, and they are part of the same mountain-forming event that caused the Atlas Mountains in Africa and even the Scottish Highlands. They have been eroding for hundreds of millions of years and are mostly made up of coastal terrestrial sedimentary deposits, including many carboniferous deposits, which is why the area is so full of coal. These mountains, as I'm sure you'll be unsurprised to learn, contain nothing in the way of structures with branching features characteristic of pennaceous feathers that we might expect if this were some kind of a bird or even a snake with bird bits.
And here's his body. Comes all the way up. And his head.
The head is in fact the Mississippi River Basin, which is the largest drainage area in North America. It's not even part of the same geological formation that make up the mountains that we were looking at earlier.
And this up here is his feathers.
At least I can kind of make out the head Roger thinks is there. I have no idea where he's getting this from.
All right, this is his headdress. He has a headdress that sits right on his head right there, and they're all feathers. Feathers make things grow very green.
Citation is definitely needed for that one.
Now, he also has beards. They almost all have beards. And here's the beards, his beards right here. This one here and this one here.
Those are tributaries of the Mississippi River. It's water, not hair.
They show exactly identical to this in the ancient glyph text.
Well, that's cool. Could we learn which texts from which civilizations? No, we can't? Oh.
And he's spitting some nasty stuff out here. That's his dead zone.
The Gulf of Mexico is not a dead zone. It's full of sharks, turtles, whales, etc. In fact, that specific area where Roger is pointing contains Shell Keys National Wildlife Refuge, which provides a habitat for numerous seabirds like the sandwich tern and the brown pelican. Birds need to eat and can't really live in a dead zone beyond just passing through it.
So we know about Scorpzilla and we know about the Quetzalcoatl.
I'm not sure "no" is the right word.
And we know about Typhon. Most everybody that's been around me knows about Typhon right here in the desert.
I guess I don't know about Typhon.
Here he is. That's his head.
That's just the Atlas Mountains, which again are part of the same paleo mountain range as the Appalachians back in North America. Everything I said about them applies here too.
And his body runs all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. And he's a huge, huge thing. He's just like the other ones, just about the same size. They're just gigantic.
Maybe because they're all actually mountain ranges, and those tend to be big.
It's 1,100 miles long from here to where his tail ends over here.
The original mountain chain was much, much bigger.
He's got legs here. His whole body is here. And he has the same plumbing as Mount Spur.
Except that these mountains aren't volcanoes, so no, they don't have the same plumbing as Mount Spur.
All right, you see, here's his head. All of this stuff here down is all runoff from a dead, decaying body.
But I thought that feldspar phospholipids prevented that. Did this guy not have cell membranes?
And these are the scales of his throat. Now, you have Google Earth. I've been doing this over and over and over and over and over. I can just keep doing it forever and nobody pays attention.
Yeah, that's because saying gullies are scales doesn't make them scales, so there's no reason to pay attention beyond laughing. Roger is just the new time cube guy.
These are the scales of his dragon-scaled throat. This is just runoff of bloody stuff that runs out of a dead, decaying body.
Except, the part that Roger thinks is runoff is actually higher in elevation than the parts he thinks the runoff is coming from. So he has all of this exactly backwards.
And it runs all the way down, and his throat was cut right here, slashed.
So we're looking into a valley here, and that's not a cut. It's two streams of eroded sediment from either side of the valley that happen to be near enough to each other to merge in the middle. You can even see the flow lines if you look carefully.
And that's in the ancient text too. Zeus cut his throat with his great and mighty sword. They call it thunderbolts.
I'm pretty sure that's lightning, not a sword, but that's the least of the problems with this.
And it's all dying here all of a sudden. This used to be green, so green you couldn't even believe it. And now there's one tiny, tiny spot. Look at this. That's all that's left. Well, there's a couple spots, but it's all dying.
That's Barrage Touski. It's a reservoir created by a small dam south of the commune of Touski, a home to approximately 5,000 people in Morocco. See, all I'm doing to figure this stuff out is finding what Roger is looking at on a map, looking at the labels on the map, and then investigating what the deal is with those places. Roger could do that too, he just chooses not to.
Why is it all dying like that? It used to be so green. That whole thing was just brilliant green.
Not anytime recently, but I don't know in particular why the water in the reservoir is so dark. It might just be whatever is in the nearby soil that has dissolved into the water. Close-up pictures of the lake don't look that dark.
But anyway, that's just another consequence of destruction of the earth. And he runs all the way across North Africa. His tail is over here, and it's still bleeding out of his tail. You see what the tail is here?
Does Roger just not believe in erosion? Like, what does he think will happen when wind and water abrade rocks?
All of those colors are colors of blood.
Yes, they're reddish sediment. But being red isn't a necessary and sufficient cause to declare something blood. You need to actually see if it's blood, because many things are red and are not blood, like apples, fire trucks, rust, some stars, etc.
They've puddled down in here and are running off from in between the scales.
Those are just gullies that are part of the same erosional features as the supposed blood.
All right, you got to come up and take your time and look at things. I'm just, this guy's crazy. No, well, maybe I am, but that doesn't mean it's not right.
Well, Roger is crazy, and he's not right, but I can't just keep pointing out things that look like things that aren't those things because we already know they're other things. So, with that, I will leave Roger alone for now, and I'm sure get right back into something that's more of my usual fare. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like and tell me in the comments. If you didn't, feel free to hit dislike and tell me what the problem was in the comments. Either way, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're always notified when I have more content. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Phil Rivara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Denny5252, Elaran Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chan, Kelvin Brostek Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Robert Carpenter, Sphincter of Doom, Volus, Ita V, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.